Having a good time on Sunday? Let's go. All right, good morning. Good morning. Hey everybody. Hope everyone's having a good Sunday. I am definitely having a great Sunday. Let's go ahead. Thank our sponsors. Two of them are my own sponsors, Hanu and Burner Lab. We also got Yoga Hana going on this Friday. It's yoga in a different way that you've never experienced before. There'll be music, there'll be beer, there'll be a bunch of different things that you guys will definitely enjoy. So you guys should definitely come out, check it out this Friday. Go to their website, yogahana.com. But yeah, I woke up today with some pretty awesome news. Actually, I went to bed with some pretty awesome news. I saw that we had an article in Forbes magazine, and yeah, Forbes magazine, that is definitely one of those magazines that pretty much everyone is really proud of. Like if you are in Forbes magazine, you feel like, man, did I make it? I feel like I've made it. It is Forbes magazine after all. And what's interesting about being in Forbes magazine is that it does feel very great to be validated to be in a magazine like that. But a lot of what I've been working on recently had to really do with feeling good about the work that I've done without being recognized. Would I be happy with the Alpha Pen if the Forbes magazine never wrote about us? And the answer is yes, and that's the most important part is, if you're not getting acknowledgement, if you're not getting validation in what you're doing, are you still happy? And if you're not, does that mean you're doing the right things? It's a very interesting question to ask yourself. And I know for myself, being in Forbes magazine is definitely something that I wear with a lot of pride, but it doesn't make or break me either. And, what's interesting about this is that for the longest time, this was my dream, to be in a magazine like this so that others would see the things that I've done and give me the recognition and acknowledgement that I believed that I deserved. And the ironic thing is, for a very long time with my previous companies, Vape Exhale and Hanu Labs, we always wanted to be in Forbes magazine. We did all the things that we believed would allow us to be in Forbes magazine. We hired a publicist. We made sure that our roadmap contained things that would be very attractive for publications to write about. And we were never written about in Forbes magazine. And now, we've really switched to doing what we want to do. What type of products do we want to make? What makes us happy? And you know what? After doing the things that were closer to our heart, that were more near and dear to the DNA of our souls, then we're in Forbes magazine. How interesting is that? Before we used to do all the things that we thought were required. Hey, let's make a roadmap that is really attractive to investors. Let's put all this technology that we think is going to be attractive to writers. Let's do all these things so people will write about us. And a lot of those things were things that we wanted to do, don't get me wrong. But a lot of the intention was for other people to acknowledge us, for other people to write about us, versus, is this something that we really wanted to do? And, with the Alpha Pen, this is something we really wanted to do. And what do I mean by really wanted to do? Well, We came up with a lot of technology that won a lot of awards, but that technology came with the price. And I'm not talking about a spiritual price. I'm talking about economic price. The first vaporizer, the Vape XL Evo, it started off at $700. So it was a very expensive device. But you know what? It was a Rolls Royce, or it is a Rolls Royce of cannabis consumption. I mean, I'm not afraid to say it. This is the device. 7 years later, it's still winning awards. But now that we started focusing on this device, it has a lot of that same magic, but it's only $20 and it's very accessible to a lot of people. And I always wanted to create what I believe to be the best technology, the most paradigm shifting technology. But if people can't afford it, if people can't purchase it and experience it, is that technology useful? Or is it only for the elites? That was something that I asked myself, and this is why we made a conscious decision with Burner Lab to create products that are very affordable, that leverage a lot of the same ingenuity, a lot of the same creativity, a lot of the same passion for the cannabis plant that we have. We weren't worried about the writers. We weren't worried about the investors. We were worried about staying true to our hearts, which was to create the best cannabis products so that people could experience them at the highest level. And I believe we've done that with the Alpha Pen, and it's only $20. That's the beautiful part. Anyone, if you could buy a 20 sack, if you could afford a dime sack, you can afford an Alpha Pen, and that's the best part. And there's parts of me that was like, man, why didn't I design this thing? Like vape pens have been around for 7-8 years now. The technology, I've been familiar with for 10 plus years. Why didn't we start with this? I could have saved myself a whole lot of heartache. Could have designed things that were much more affordable. But the flip side is I wouldn't have learned all the lessons that I've learned of being an entrepreneur, of learning things from osmosis and from taking your lumps in the real world versus just reading books. Books about entrepreneurship, books about marketing, books about lead generation. Really stepping into the fire and believing in myself that no matter what happened, if I just keep putting in the effort, good things will happen. This has been a 7-year journey, this startup. We launched in 2013. Actually, it's a 10-year journey. We started making the products in 2010. And if someone told me it would take 10 years for us to be recognized by Forbes, I would have said I'm willing to put in the time. I thought we'd be recognized like 5 years ago, but it's okay. It just shows that this was something that I love. Stuck with it, even when we had a lot of tough times. I would say the hardest part of the cannabis industry to raise capital for is the hardware space. I mean, look at how many successful hardware companies there are. There's not many. I can name them on one hand. Pax, G-Pen, Puffco, Steezy, Dosist, and that's about it, C-Cell. But they provide the hardware for all the other companies I just mentioned. And a lot of times, my background is in software, so a lot of times I was thinking I should have made a software program, should have done something different. But, those things just didn't have the same interest level for me as vaping. I love vaping. Actually, I'm going to vape right now. Yeah, this is our seed product. This is like an alpha, but a little bit smaller. Fits in your pocket. Really nice, cool little device. But yeah, I just finished watching Westworld. So if you guys haven't watched season 3, you guys might want to tune out right now because I'm going to talk about Westworld. What an awesome show it is. All the different things that I've learned from watching the show about consciousness, about free will. Are we organic robots? Are we different? Are we just a compilation of all of our biological algorithms, the oxytocin, the serotonin, the dopamine, the cortisol? Or does our consciousness transcend that? Does the mind and the spirit separate? Those are all very, very deep questions that, I think Westworld did a pretty good job addressing. And how does this tie into Forbes magazine and believing in self? Well, you could either believe that you're part of a program that you can't break, that you're part of a loop, that your destiny is predetermined. And I don't think so. There have been many times when I felt like giving up, but somewhere I found an extra gear to keep going. And Sam Harris makes a very compelling argument that free will doesn't exist, especially when you look at the fMRIs. The fMRIs could tell you up to 10 seconds what your decision is before your conscious mind becomes aware of that decision. So if a computer could predict what you're going to decide before you decide, do you have free will? Westworld tackles a lot of those subjects this season. And after finishing watching Westworld, it's hard to say, do we have free will or not? But one thing that I am sure of is that we do feel everything that is happening to us. And I don't feel that this is a deterministic life. I do feel like we are a culmination of our biological algorithms. And I do feel that we have no free will over our desires. Our desires are based on our genetics and epigenetics. But I do believe we have free will to exercise our desires. And that's the interesting part. We have very strong biological algorithms that get us excited, that get us sad, that get us depressed, that make us want to do a whole bunch of different things. But we also have free will to exercise those desires. And what are we going to do with that? And I believe that's like taking the red pill and jumping out of the matrix and going, yes, my knee-jerk reactions are this, but I have a cognitive brain to get around those emotions. And it takes a lot of practice, to be honest. It takes a lot of self-awareness. It takes a lot of introspection, to get to that level. I'm 43 years old, still kind of feel like a white belt when I examine myself in that way. But I also know every time I examine myself deeply, I come away with new learnings. New learnings about myself. New learnings that make me more confident about the decisions that I make, regardless of how other people respond or react. Because they're responding and reacting with limited information that I'm making my decisions on. And sometimes it seems like my decisions don't make sense. And many times I would try to control the narrative and be like, well, man, if you don't understand this, let me just give you more information till you understand. Because I wanted them to think and feel the same way I did. But what I realized was, if you didn't grow up the way I did, you might not think and feel the way I did. So I need to hold room in my head for these two realities to exist. But ultimately, I've also learned to trust my own opinion, to listen to my calling, to be unapologetic for the things that I do and the decisions that I make, because they're not for everyone to understand. They're for me to understand. And when I make the best decisions for myself, end up making the best hardware for everyone else. That's the crazy part about this. When I was thinking about everyone else, I made different types of hardware. When I went back to thinking what's best for me, I believe we started designing things that transcended what you thought you needed. Because a lot of these things that we designed in the Alpha Pen, the haptic feedback, the smart pulse algorithms, the A-grade batteries, the dual mouthpieces, these are things that people weren't even asking for. People didn't understand that they needed to exist in vape pen battery technology. So if I was thinking about what people wanted or needed, we wouldn't have designed the Alpha Pen the way we did. And that's when I'm talking about believing in self, why it's so important. And in Westworld, the hosts needed to believe in themselves, to find autonomy, to find their own consciousness through the maze. And that's the amazing thing, whether we're talking about hosts or whether we're talking about humans. Believing in self, that's the most important thing. You know, you have to be conscious of what other people think. You know, I'm not saying don't be conscious of what other people are thinking. But what I'm saying is believing in yourself, your ideas, your ability to execute. It will help you tremendously. You know, I can't tell you how many times people told me to go back to my day job, to go do something easier. And I'm glad I didn't listen to them. You know, all the lumps that I took in the cannabis industry, I wouldn't take nothing back. You know, sure, my life could have been easier, but you don't tend to learn a lot of things when life is going well. You know, and that's the part about life that is tricky. You want some resistance. You want to be challenged, but you don't want to be overwhelmed. So I feel like a lot of your ideologies, a lot of your mental practices, religious belief, those are all really kind of mental health workout programs. And after 43 years, I feel like I'm starting to figure it out, you know, how much stress I need in my life to feel challenged. But how much stress is too much, where the best version of myself isn't coming out. And I'm starting to make decisions based on stress, depression, anxiety, market conditions, getting desperate because of COVID, different things like that. So yeah, if this resonates with you guys, you know, love to hear if you guys have any anecdotes that you guys like to share or any questions. Any stories of where you believed in yourself and you overcame a lot. People need to hear those stories because I think a lot of people, they're feeling overwhelmed. They're feeling a lack of hope. They're feeling like no matter how hard they try, the deck is stacked against them. And that's a horrible place to be. You know, I've been there. I've been there several times in the last few years. And it's really tough. But that's why, you know, I didn't have to believe in the cannabis industry. I didn't have to believe anything other than believing in myself to keep going, to keep striving, to keep pushing forward, to listen to myself. And you know what? It took a long time to trust that person. You know, I would always look to other people. I would call a lot of friends. I would call a lot of other CEOs and ask them, what do you guys think of this idea? And a lot of times those guys weren't even in the cannabis industry. They were just other smart people. But I would need that self-assurance from them, you know, before moving forward. And that's what I realized. It was just self-assurance. I mean, these people had no idea what the cannabis industry was. You know, I just wanted some confirmation. And I realized in hindsight that I knew what the best ideas were. I was just second guessing myself. And those are the things that I really want to hammer home today, which is you got to believe in yourself. If you keep believing, it might not happen next week, next month, or even next year. But, you know, this 10-year journey has rewarded me with a lot of great things. The Forbes write-up is kind of like just a culmination of it. It's just the icing on the cake. But, you know, I've been very happy. I've been very happy and satisfied with what I've been doing for the last few months. You know, in a weird way, I feel reborn, reawakened. re-energized for this industry, because 2019 was really tough. Like a lot of my friends' business, like 90% of the people that I know in this industry, they had to shut down their businesses, or they sold their businesses for pennies on the dollar. And it was really tough to see all these things happening to them, and to get sour on the cannabis industry becoming just like any other industry where only a few main players are making a lot of money. Typically, the corporate white guys. Just look at the management teams of all the largest companies. You start seeing an industry that was kept afloat by the people of color that were growing illegally, the people of color that were criminalized disproportionately for using a plant, and put into jail. We weren't the people that were reaping the rewards of cannabis being legalized. It's really fucking depressing when you think about that. But you know what? I still believe that the mission wasn't to be worried about that. The mission was to make sure that people could enjoy cannabis freely, unapologetically. They could get medicine that didn't have pesticides or bacteria, vape carts that had heavy metals and lead in them, and that they could feel confident that they went to the dispensary, that they were getting something good for themselves, good for their relatives. And that's what kind of motivated me to keep pushing forward, was that I knew like this plant would help so many people. And if we could help more people, we could potentially heal the earth by expanding consciousness through this plant. And yeah, cannabis is a gateway drug. It's a gateway drug to more powerful, more deeply introspective entheogens like mushrooms, ayahuasca, DMT, ibogaine, peyote, Don Pedro. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And yeah, that's when I remember the promise that I made to myself. That promise was to make sure that people who could benefit from cannabis would understand the healing properties of the cannabis plant. Many of those people are Asian, and I don't think they would believe any other person other than an Asian face. And that Asian face, you needed to go to like a really good college. I checked that box, UCLA. That Asian person needed to have a good job. I checked that box. I worked at 5 tech companies that had successful exits. That information needed to come from someone that was professionally successful. I checked that box too. I run a thriving startup in the cannabis space. And yeah, now I could live out my dreams, educating people about cannabis, helping them crack open their minds and their consciousness to be more open and empathetic people, kinder people, and not just people worried about professional and personal success, people that are worried about working for a greater power, something greater than themselves. And that's how we start healing the world. Like your own professional success is great, and everyone needs to start there. You need to feel good about yourself. You need to feel confident that you can do the things that you set out to do. But at the same time, you can't forget that we all live on this planet together. And regardless of political ideologies, spiritual ideologies, that we're all here to experience the world, that we're all here to love each other, that we need to help each other understand things and not just tell people the way that they're thinking is wrong. And that's why I have so much reverence for this plant. Red or blue, when you smoke some weed, seems like people could hang out together, open up their minds a little, find a little more room in their hearts to accept people that think differently, to not immediately label them a snowflake or a racist. That's the world that I'm really pushing for. And utilizing this plant, utilizing the alpha pen as a Trojan horses to help people inhale more consciousness into their soul, to enrich their soul. That's my purpose, That's my purpose here. To share this plant, to share my thoughts. And I hope everyone that's watching, if you're inspired by this, share your ideas with the world. Be more open. Don't keep those ideas to yourself. I have this theory that the best ideas are only the best ideas of talkative people, of outgoing people. But a lot of the best ideas are kept inside because people don't feel like they have a voice. I have not heard of Carl Sagan's pale blue dot speech, but I'm assuming it has something to do with what I'm speaking about right now. And ultimately, if we could do those things, we could start healing the world. The world's in a really weird place right now. So if you could take this message of love, of compassion and understanding, and push it through the inhalation of this plant, I think we got a shot, man. I think we got a shot. We need to try our hardest because, man, I got kids. I'm not so worried about myself. Like, I know I could live. I know I could survive. I know I could figure out what to do on this planet. But my kids, I'm very worried about what type of world that they're going to grow up in. I need to try harder. We all need to try harder to make sure that the world that our kids grow up in is a better world than the ones that we did. A less divisive world, a more inclusive world. World where you could consume cannabis and not worried about being thrown away, locked away. And with that said, I'm going to go hang out with my kids now and give them the best gift I could give them, which is my undivided attention. Thank you guys for your undivided attention. Everyone that stayed on, that watched. I've been here for almost a half hour just rambling on about how I feel and what's going through my mind and what I think is important. So I appreciate you guys spending your Sunday afternoon looking at a screen, listening to me talk. Because I know that you could be anywhere else. HK, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for watching. And yeah, for everyone else that's out there, have an awesome Sunday. I'm going to go hang out with my kids now, eat some ice cream, and live out all the things that I said that we should be doing, which is be engaged with life. Every second is a gift. And yes, Drew, I love that you're loving the Alpha Pen, man. I didn't really want to come on here and just talk about business. But yeah, man, I love the Alpha Pen too. That's my gift to you guys. Every time you guys use the Alpha Pen, just think about me. Think about the love, the effort, everything that I poured into this device so that you guys could enjoy cannabis at this high level. I'm appreciative of myself too. At this point, I'm like giving myself props, I used to not think too highly about what I did, but now I can, be more grateful for myself as well. And all the things that I've even, that I put myself through in order to get this out into the public, in order for Forbes to think it's worthy enough to cover, to write a story about. And yeah, that's what I love to see. People that aren't even vape pen people are now becoming vape pen people because of this technology. Before, I don't think I trusted myself enough to be able to be proud of inventing these things. I just have this fake humble act. But now I am proud. So with that said, for the rest of the people still watching, let's take a short breather. Let's get back into our own bodies. Let's think about how the ganja has blessed our life to help us experience more. And let's all take a hit together. Here we go. Beautiful. All right, guys. Have an awesome Sunday. Yeah, go check out burnerlab.com if you guys want one of these alpha pens. They're usually $25. We lowered it to $20, so no one has an excuse you can't afford one. Go use the code Drew. Go put in your code right now. Let people know what your code is so people can buy from you. We can credit you. And yeah, have a happy Sunday. I'm out, guys.